Today we're making Brazilian black beans. And rice. So I'm going to show you both recipes. We are soaking 1 pound of black beans. These have been soaking overnight. Soaking is something that is nice to do if you have time, and also if you have trouble digesting beans. Some people might add a little something acidic like vinegar to this water if the water is being drained. But you can see, because the black beans, the soaking water is so black, you can't really see the beans, but it's this amount of beans, and this is what you'll get in your recipe prep kit. It's 2 and 1/4 cups, which is approximately 1 pound of beans. So I gave you some instructions for a quick soak method. You can also put the beans after you've rinsed them. Sometimes there's little stones or dirt, so always rinse these dried beans in a colander, and you can put them in a pot and with hot water and boil them for 1 or 2 minutes, and then turn that off and let it sit for 1 to 2 hours. That's like a quick soak method. You can also just make beans without soaking. You just need more time to cook them. So I'm going to rinse these beans in the sink. You can see how much they expand from the dried beans. We can look at them side by side. So when you soak them, you're going to need to put enough water over them because they're very thirsty. They soak up the water. But if you compare like the dried bean with the soaked bean, it's about double the size, or maybe even more. Wow. Right? It's a big difference. So lots of times I'll soak in something like a Pyrex bowl or like that, but you can see it takes up a lot of room. So if you have limited counter space, you could also soak your beans in something like this, big, smaller footprint on your counter. This is just a random little plastic canister that we can't find the lid for. It's perfect for something like this. You could just put, a small plate on top to keep, dust out, or you could use something like this half-quart jar. This is not a half-quart jar. This is a half-gallon jar, 2 quarts. Um, but again, just remembering to leave enough put enough water in. Maybe like in this bowl, there was like 1 to 2 inches above. Um, so now these are soaked, they're rinsed, and we are going to put them in the pot to cook. The original recipe that I was inspired by for this uh, was an Instapot recipe, so like an electric pressure cooker. And if you have a pressure cooker, that's going to go much faster. And then you put 5 cups in, but it's not too bad on the stovetop, maybe like an hour. So we're going to bring this to a boil. So I'm going to turn this up. Um, and we're going to add a few things to this. We're going to add 2 bay leaves. Those are in the kit. Just gonna remember to take these out at the end. And then we have 2 dried peppers. These are California peppers, and you can see they're from 2 different sources. So on this one, the little tops are off. So I just brought these in together so that you could see. You might get something that looks like this, or you might get something that looks like this. The seeds, the part that makes it spicy, are inside the pepper. I like to just put them in whole, like that. Or if you're concerned about the seeds and it being a little too hot, you could just slice one open and let the seeds out. And what you might do is just save these to the end. So if you think, oh, I could have had it a little spicier, you can add this at the end. But you put those in. We're also going to add salt and pepper. So there's some debate about when to add salt when cooking beans from scratch. And the idea is that if you add salt now, as I've just done, Some people believe that that can make the beans tough. And I think that people have tried it out enough to know that that actually is not true and that the beans absorb more of the flavor. We're just using water. Some recipes for beans use broth, so it's nice to have a little bit of flavor in there. The original recipe called for the peppers that were the chili peppers that were called for were the what were they called? Chipotle. So they have a smoky flavor. These don't have a smoky flavor, so we'll miss out a little on that. If you had chipotle peppers, sometimes they come in little cans, that might be nice in there. Or another idea, if you really want that kind of smoky flavor, is to use something like this smoked salt. And it sounds sort of gourmet and fancy, but it's not too dear. I got this at Natural Grocers a long time ago. I can tell because the label's all kind of worn. So I just use this really sparingly. I wouldn't even use this for probably all of the salt. I just use a portion of the salt, maybe like a half teaspoon or something, and see if that's the kind of smoky flavor. I'm just gonna leave these plain because I think they're fine without the smoky flavor. So while those are cooking, I'm just gonna save our seeds here just in case we want more spicy flavor at the end. And I want to show you, I really want to put a lid on that. Ha, where is that lid? You know what? I'm going to improvise. This lid is too big, but it'll work in this case. I'm really just trying to concentrate the heat. So we're gonna also put an onion in. This onion, you have one onion in your recipe prep kits, and then they're mostly bigger than this onion. I happen to have a small one. The recipe itself calls for half an onion. But since you have the whole onion, it's up to you. You could use the whole onion or save the half onion in the refrigerator for some other recipe. Since this onion is on the smaller side, I'm just gonna use the whole thing. So you can see I cut it in half through the lengthwise, I guess you'd say, right? And then I'm just peeling back the skins. For anyone who makes bone broth or even vegetable broth, the skins look good, like there's no mold or anything on them. You can save those in your freezer to add to a soup stock and things like this that are a little tough. Sometimes it's nice to have a bag of those little scraps going so that when you make soup stock, you can just easily add those. So I'm cutting towards the end of the onion, and I'm going to hold it like with a cloth like that to keep it safe. Any which way you can put an onion is fine. There's no one right way. I just think that if you can make it flat on the board, it's not rolling around, it's much safer. So this one. And as I get near the end, I'm just gonna turn it, chop, chop, chop. And it just cross chop a little bit just to get those pieces a little smaller. And then should go. Woo, frying a little bit. That's a potent onion. I'm actually just gonna set this arrangement over to the main stove so it can keep cooking and show you just frying up the onion. And that induction burner is beeping because it doesn't have anything sitting on it. It's talking to me. Is it happy now? It probably still has an error. Oh no, it went back. That's the tricky thing when I've learned how to use induction cooking here. All of the special things about that. I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil in the pan. I'm using olive oil, but any any cooking oil that you have will work. I guess I used about 2 tablespoons there. Let that heat a little bit. And we're going, it's already beeping at me again. Oh, it's happy now. Okay. So I'm gonna put the onion in there. I noticed there's a little water on my board, so I'm just wiping that off so that that doesn't splatter when I put it into the pan. It's on a pretty high heat, so you can hear it sizzle. I'm just gonna turn that down. Sort of a low. Don't stick your fingers in the pan like I do. And I'm just gonna, I notice there's a little bit of the outside skin of the onion got in there. So I'm just gonna fish that out. I'll let this saute. Oh, we had smell-o-vision. It smells really good. So while that is cooking, maybe I'll even turn it down a touch more. In your kit is also a bulb of garlic, a whole bulb of garlic. So we just need 5 cloves. So the cloves, you can usually take off some of the outside and just pull it off with your finger. This particular one is a little tight. Again, if you like garlic, you could add more. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I can count. Just gonna get these little papery parts of the garlic off. This is still pretty hot. It can cook slowly. Okay, that's going. You can crush the garlic like this, like with the flat end of the knife, you can just go whack like that. And as soon as the paper peels off, I can see that there's a little bad spot on the garlic. So maybe I'll add another one just because I'm gonna lose a bit. And I do like garlic, so I'm just gonna take that bad spot off and maybe get a little teensy more garlic. 1 more clove, maybe. I mean, sometimes it depends too on how big the cloves are. So sometimes you get near the center of the garlic and the cloves are smaller. Another way you could do is just to kind of cut into one side of it, and that sort of starts to peel the garlic. I'll show you with a smaller knife, like a little paring knife. So cut a little bit in and it peels that. So that's nice and clean now. So we're gonna mince the garlic, or we're going to use a garlic press. If you have something like that, you could use that. Just be mindful that you don't, however you cut the garlic, you don't burn the garlic. It smells so good with frying with the onions, but it can burn quite quickly. Actually gonna turn that down. I've seen some more. This recipe is quite simple. You can add things if you'd like to it, but just on its own, it's really delicious. Sometimes, if you have a little bit of frozen corn in the freezer, or like frozen collards or spinach, that might be nice thrown in. Just some ideas if you want to change it up a bit. But it is, like I said, it is really delicious and satisfying all on its own. In Brazil, they use a lot of black beans. Often it's cooked in a stew with some sort of smoky meats. Well, that sounds good too, if you've got it. You could add a little bit of, bacon or something like that to the pot. But again, you don't need to, and you can get a lot of smoky flavor from something like a chipotle pepper or smoked sea salt. So I'm just roughly chopping this. And then I'll go back in and chop it finer. You could also use something like this if you have it. If you get tired of chopping. So something like the garlic press is going to make the garlic very finely pressed. I didn't lose it. Okay. So that's where I want you to be really careful not to burn it. So I'll just show you what that looks like. And then with the back of the knife, you would take it off so you don't dull your knife, right? This one is nice because it's easy to clean. This little part comes out. This was from IKEA. It's held up for many years. But just cutting the garlic like this is also easy too. And this smells so good. Not even frying it yet. The garlic smells really good. We're also going to make a pot of rice to go with our beans. This is just a simple white long grain rice that we're making. I made some ahead of time so you could see it. Just scraping off carefully and chopping it a little finer. And now I'm going to add this to the onions. This gets added to the beans when they're all done. Some recipes, you would have this cooking right alongside of it. But in this way, in this particular recipe, this is done on the side. So we're just going to keep an eye on this and make sure it doesn't burn. The heat is very low now. It's at 1. I could even probably put it up a notch. Just keeping an eye on that. I want to show you now the rice. So I'll move the beans out of the way. The beans and the rice are going to make 4 servings. So this is 2 cups of rice that comes in the recipe kit in the Ziploc bag. To rinse rice, to wash rice, or to not. It's some people, like to do it, insist on doing it. Some people don't. It's a fuss and don't want to bother with that. Either way is good. When I'm washing rice that I'm cooking on the stovetop, I like to rinse it in a colander like this so that most of the water comes out and I can get a nice measurement of the ratio. You'll see different ratios for rice, sometimes 2 to 1. So if you have 2 cups of rice, the recommendation might be 4 cups of water. I like to use 3 cups of water instead. So you can see that the rice water, which I know some people use on their hair, if you can capture that and rinse your hair with that, I guess it makes it really shiny. But you can see it has a lot of starch. So by rinsing it, the grains become a little fluffier and separate. And I can show you. Then I would just let that drain a little bit, add this to a pot, and then add the water. This is looking good, and it's smelling really good too. Gosh, so simple. Okay. The rice that I cooked beforehand, if you're cooking it on the stovetop, you'll want a tight fitting lid. This lid is pretty tight. The idea is that the steam, once the rice and the water come to a boil, they're going to be sealed, and so that's all of the water is getting absorbed into the rice, and you have nice fluffy rice at the end, hopefully. And we do, yay! Rice is pretty forgiving, so if you're like, wait a minute, how much water did I put in there? Another trick you can do is that when you put the rice in the pot, put the water in the pot, the measurement should come just to your first knuckle of your finger. A lot of, I learned that in Japan. So a lot of Asian folks who have rice daily might just measure the rice that way, but you can see, measure the water rather, and the ratios. But you can see this is nice and fluffy after it's cooked. So you bring it to the rice and the water to a boil. I'm going to turn this off. It sounds like it's ready. After you bring the rice and the water to a boil, you're going to lower the heat so that it's just at the lowest possible simmer. Put the lid on and set the timer. I set the timer for 15 minutes and then opened the lid and I could see that it was ready to go. It was ready. So I put the lid back on, I took it off the heat and let it sit there to kind of fluff up a little bit. So this makes, from 2 cups of rice, it makes 4 servings here. So let me show you a pot of these beans that are already cooked. Get another. Ah, silence. I love these induction burners. They're easy to keep clean. They're safe because they shut off. But they are noisy. This is a pot of the beans, the Brazilian black beans that I made. I started them yesterday in the crock pot. So I wanted to just touch upon if you're cooking them in the crock pot, they probably would take about 5 hours on high. So I didn't have enough time, so I popped it in the fridge and finished it off on the stovetop. For the stovetop, it's about an hour. I would maybe start checking around 40 minutes. And then in the Instapot or the electric pressure cooker, it would be about 30 minutes under pressure, and then just you can release the steam. So whatever you've got available to you, you can use that. It's sort of nice having a nice pot of beans going on the stovetop. Cooking long and slow. Now, if you haven't soaked the beans, they'll just need a little longer on all of those different cook times. You can see that the that pepper, that California chili pepper, kind of broke into pieces. I might pull these out and just chop them a little bit or just leave them in here and people can fish them out. But you can see that most of the water has been absorbed. It's not as soupy as when we started. The other thing to keep an eye on is the water level getting too low. So you don't want your beans to burn. You could be adding more water. Some of the beans are thirstier than others and they just soak up more water. If you're boiling at a higher temperature and more water is evaporating or, coming off as steam. So once your beans are ready, right? You remember what's in here is the pepper, the bay leaf, can I remember? Salt, pepper, regular black pepper. I haven't put the cumin in yet. Once it's ready, I'm going to, I taste the bean and it's the right consistency that I like. It's fully cooked. I'm going to add the mixture of onion and garlic and the cumin. The cumin in here is very small. It's just a small amount of cumin. It's like a quarter teaspoon or a half teaspoon or something like that. I can't remember. I will tell you, it is a half teaspoon. You would add that at the end, fine, a half teaspoon, but you would add that as the beans are ready. And you would also taste for salt. Does it need more salt? Does it need more pepper? The other thing that is nice to add is a little splash of vinegar. The recipe calls for white vinegar, and so you can use any vinegar you have. I happen to have in the kitchen rice vinegar, not the most common vinegar, but that's what I happen to have right now in the kitchen. It's a little less acidic, so I can be a little more liberal with it. I could put, a teaspoon, say. But that little bit of acidity at the end is really a nice touch. So I'm going to try these and see. how they are. I'm gonna make a little beans and rice bowl for myself in this cute little pinchy measuring cup thing. Spoons. Looks good. That's really nice. I think I would even add a little more salt. But it's a really nice flavor. Yum. It's not spicy. It has a kind of heat to it. I think I might just for funsies put this in the smoked salt. Just a little touch of it. But as you salt more, sometimes the flavors come out. So if it doesn't feel spicy and it's a little undersalted, adding some salt will bring out the spiciness as well. I can smell it. And what did I use? I just measured it in my hand, but it was probably like a quarter of a teaspoon. So not very much. It's one of those cases where a little goes a long way. But any salt will work with this dish. That is really good. Yum. And so, like I mentioned, this makes 4 portions. You can, enjoy your meal with the beans and rice, and then you can put this in the refrigerator or even the freezer. So I just wanted to show you kind of like what I sometimes will do. This is a little tiny for a portion, but just slightly. And then put the beans on top. Oh, this looks really good. And then you could, I would let this cool down in the fridge, and then you can pop it in the freezer. I found that these types of containers freeze well. I don't freeze jars, they break too easily, and that's it's a mess you just don't want. But these freeze well, and then you could even just almost when you go to frost it, a little bit under hot water, and it pops out, and you could heat it up, or you could just heat it up in here. A lot of people don't have the freezer space, so you can keep this in the refrigerator for 3 to 5 days, I would say. And that is what I've got. I'm trying to think of other questions that people sometimes have about cooking beans.
How long did this recipe take you in total?
That is a really good question. Let's not count the soaking time, because soaking time can be overnight. I would say though that the cooking on the stove top, let's say the beans took an hour, I can do things like create just do the saute of the onions and garlic. I can tidy up the clean as you go part is nice for these dishes that are low, slow, and long on the stove top. I made the rice during that time, so maybe an hour and a half, but not too intensive hands-on. There's lots of nice breaks in there. So.
And would you just put the onions and garlic on top?
Yeah, so at the very end, so let's pretend these are the beans that have come off there. I would just add these, stir them in, and cook for maybe 10 minutes more just to have the flavors meld.
Okay.
Yeah, the other part that I mentioned in the beginning, but I want to mention again, is to find those bay leaves. You know that you put 2 in, so you're looking for 2 bay leaves and pull them out, and you can just put them in the compost. Whereas the pepper, see if I can grab a little bit of the dried pepper. You could just kind of leave that in there. It's sort of papery, but you might want to chop it up. Or discard it. But the bay leaf it remains very tough. So you want to discard those. They've given up all their good flavor to the pot of beans. Okay. Hope you enjoy.